Hello, Lustre subscribers. We are here today to talk to Cobi Gantz. Cobi is the co-founder and CEO of a company called Chapter, and its motto is one that we would like to live by: Medicare made simple. That sounds almost impossible, but tell us, Cobi, how did you come to this, and how can you possibly make Medicare simple?
Medicare is really complicated, and we do our best. To take a step back, I started getting interested in Medicare and more broadly some of the challenges that my parents and my grandfather specifically were facing quite a few years ago when he lived with my parents and me. I was fortunate to get to spend time with him, but what I did see was that he really struggled to engage with the modern tech-enabled world coming of age, not at a time when everyone had their own computer. Now, he wasn't by any means a Luddite. He was extremely proficient in the technology of his day, but that was a very different set of technology than what we use every day. And so for him, when he was trying to enroll in Medicare, he really relied on my mom. And through both of them, it took numerous calls, lots of paperwork, going into different local, state, or federal Social Security offices to try to figure out what was going on. And I think it took about 3 full weeks of both of their time to figure out how to enroll and what plan to enroll in, which to me, as someone who's worked in technology for a long time, is pretty baffling. And then last year, I saw my own parents enroll in Medicare, and they had a similarly frustrating experience, both for them and for me as an onlooker. And it was astounding that even after all of that effort, they were in a plan that was charging them more than they needed to be charged. So the whole thing was just very confusing to me, why the process couldn't be easier. And one heuristic that we use is anytime what a technologist would call the front end for an experience is the Social Security Administration, there's probably something wrong. So we use that to look at the Medicare market. That is a measure, certainly.
Well, another measure, I think, is that AARP publishes a book about it, which is about 450 pages long, which strikes me as quite crazy if you intend to have people access it. So it's not just modern technology that's the issue. It seems to be the whole structure of the thing. But anyway, you got into it, and what was your approach?
Yeah, so as you alluded to, there are both technology and non-technology issues with the Medicare market. When we looked at it, we saw really 2 or 3 fundamental issues. One is that there's really bad incentive alignment. So what that means is that between the 3 big parts of the Medicare market, there's, or I guess 4 parts. There's the government, there are insurance carriers, there are Medicare advisors like us at Chapter, and then there are, most importantly, the recipients of Medicare, the end user or the member. And among those 4, the incentives are not well aligned to help people enroll in a plan that is best for them. The way it works today is that most people do use a Medicare advisor, which is good. Medicare advisors are licensed by state and federal government to be at a certain standard and provide a certain set of capabilities. Unfortunately, though, the obligation that the government imposes is not actually to provide the best recommendation of plan selection to the individual, full stop. It is to provide the best recommendation of plan selection among a subset of plans with which that Medicare advisor has a relationship. And so what that means in practice is that if a Medicare advisor has contracts with, say, 3 or 4 insurance carriers, they're only required to recommend the best plan among those 3 or 4. And to us, that made no sense. It's like if you were working with a travel agent who said they were only going to look at flights on American, unless, of course, that was your very strong preference. But most of us would want to look at the whole host of airlines from which to choose for flight selection. And so we took a similar approach, which is we search every plan available on the market, and we try to distill that into the most important and relevant components for the individual. But it's not easy. There are lots of different factors that go into the Medicare selection process. For some people, the most important thing is minimizing costs. For some people, the most important thing is minimizing potential exposure if someone gets sick. And it really depends on people's personal preferences. So that's really, we think about it as a very personal choice. And we try to take a one-on-one approach to it so that you're not in a one-size-fits-all market.
The theory that you pay more, you get more is not exactly true.
There are cases for which it is certainly true. There are definitely times when it makes sense to pay for specific people to pay higher premiums, so you have more coverage or less exposure if you do get sick. But you can often keep the same coverage with paying less. And especially on the prescription drug side, we see that a lot. The price you pay changes whether you fill that prescription in a particular pharmacy or on a mail order pharmacy. And so we help people not only find a plan that covers their prescriptions at the best rate, but also helps them fill that prescription at the place where it's going to be cheapest, because that can also be a very significant difference in expense if you fill it at your local pharmacy versus over the mail. So it's a strange market.
So how difficult was it to capture all these plans in all these counties and all these states?
There are a lot of complexities to the actual data and infrastructure that goes into it. To get the base set of data, you would think there's just a list that maybe the government publishes or insurance carriers publish. Unfortunately, the data with all the plan information and all the benefits associated with those plans lives in about 400 different data sets.
Why am I not surprised?
And that's for one type of plan. There's another type of plan. So Medigap plans are provided by a different source because that's not regulated by the federal government. And so that lives in a different place. So it really is in a part of a data integration challenge, which is something that I used to work on a lot in my prior job. That's one aspect, just getting the plan information. But then there's all the other information you need. So what doctors are in network with which carriers, or does a doctor take traditional Medicare or not? That is a whole host of data challenges that a lot of organizations are working on. It's a well-known problem in the healthcare space, and we've partnered with a company that has spent a lot of time improving that. So we think we have very strong data quality there. There's also, as I mentioned, the formulary data, which of course is separate, and then the pharmacy data, which is separate, and then all of your own preferences. So where do you live? How frequently do you expect to see a doctor? What prescriptions are you taking? What are your personal preferences? So it becomes a very challenging data problem, which is part of the reason why it's so hard for people to navigate by themselves.
So if someone comes to you, and I gather most of your customers are women, if they come to you, what exactly happens? What's the first thing that happens?
People come to us through a variety of sources, so it depends a little bit on the way that they come to us. But after they fill out a short questionnaire, we connect them with one of our Medicare advisors. These are licensed Medicare advisors who have received excellent reviews and excellent training to provide one-on-one advice. And really, it's often a quick call, 15 to 20 minutes, get to know the advisor, understand the potential client's preferences, make sure that we can help them find the best plan for them. And often, as I said, we don't constrain our recommendations to plans with which we have a relationship. So if someone is already on the right plan, or we don't have a relationship with the plan that is correct, we'll help you fill out the paperwork and all the documentation for the other plan, even though we don't work with them.
Well, 20 minutes sounds like a lot better than 3 weeks. So sounds like major progress.
In full disclosure, the whole process can take a little bit longer than the 20 minutes because there is paperwork, which we automate as much as we can and pre-fill as much as we can. Unfortunately, the full scope of technology infrastructure across insurance carriers, across the entire market, is not something we can quite tackle all up front. So we still have to deal with some of the legacy infrastructure, and it can take a little bit of time, but we do try to make it as easy as we can.
You say in your Lustre post that your clients are wise in mind, young at heart, right? So what are the challenges in taking all this information that took you, I'm sure, hours and days and weeks and months to compile in a manageable fashion? But then there has to be challenges for this wise in mind, young at heart population and designing it in a way that makes it user-friendly for people like us that are not computer illiterate and not Luddites, but are not, techies either.
It's challenging. I think it's challenging for a couple of reasons. One is that I think building any software, any good user interface is hard, regardless of the end user. And the second is really that we, most of the people on the team, just candidly are not of the target audience. That's not a unique challenge to us, though. Really, I take the same principles that I've always taken when building software, which is just getting as much feedback as we can and iterating as we go. The really core set of challenges that are unique here are that a lot of the design principles and technology principles that are used across a lot of other platforms are not as effective when designing for a Medicare-aged audience. So things like information hierarchy are not as apparent to people. So a specific example is people might not know to go to a particular drop-down menu, and that drop-down menu is going to have the information that they need, or not know where that drop-down menu is. People often actually take the time to read what's on the page. Our target users take the time to read what's on the page, whereas people of my generation don't. They tend to skip around and have a much slower attention span. So all these things just make the entire design system quite different.
So your parents are part of your test group, I hope?
Absolutely. Yes, my parents are a big part of the test group. I text them or call them pretty much every day asking, how does this look? What do you think of this? But it's also important that we get diverse feedback. So we are always asking our users and non-users for feedback about what they would want and how a particular application works for them.
Chapter as a company is not just devoted to Medicare, Cobi, right? It's got in mind servicing this community or servicing us, let's say, with other products too. Is that right?
That's right.
And do you have things that will be coming up that we can watch for?
Yeah, so we are very squarely focused on making the Medicare experience as good as it can be. But we actually think about that quite expansively. So things like, as I said, if you need to find a doctor throughout the year who is in network with your plan, you can ask us. We provide that support. If you get a new prescription and you want to figure out the best place to fill it, given your plan, so that it's most cost effective, you can ask us for that. And so we already provide that kind of ongoing support. Outside of Medicare, the way we think about it, as I said, is we don't know what the answers are. We really rely on our user base to tell us what's challenging for them, what do they think there should be in the market. And so that's how we think about it. There are a couple of examples of things that are very well known that are challenging for a lot of people as they enter retirement or leave full-time employment. One is certainly continuing to find part-time work and volunteer opportunities, either for supplemental income or for purpose. And enabling that is something that we're really excited about exploring. I think we're quite a ways away from really launching that non-Medicare set of products, but we're thinking about it a lot. And if people have ideas or requests, that's how we figure these things out. So we're very much building with and for our audience.
Well, that's a huge first step, I think, in understanding that the users actually should have some input in how technology is designed. Well, thank you very much, Cobi. I think this sounds like an opportunity for all of us, and was a fascinating talk. Thank you.